So you've been practicing at the range like the responsible individual you are, and the thought of cleaning your AR-15 crosses your mind. But if you're anything like me, or if you spent any amount of time on gun forums, you've noticed that this topic can be surprisingly controversial. How often do I clean my AR? Do I even need to? After spending hours and hours of research, and going down the rabbit hole of internet gun content, you've just found you're more conflicted and more confused than when you first started out. Well, if this is you, or if you already know how to clean your gun but you just want to hear someone else's take, then this video is for you. So I've noticed people typically don't disagree on how to clean their AR-15. That's usually a pretty set standard procedure. What people disagree on is how often to clean it, if they even need to at all. In my opinion, yes, these are machines and they're built to be durable. At the same time, machines do need to be taken care of, and hopefully like you take your car into the shop to get maintained every now and then, why not take the same approach for your AR as well? It's a machine that you want to make sure it functions reliably, you want it to be dependable, and with that, it requires a little bit of care, and frankly, it's pretty low effort to do so. So what's the magic number? How often should you clean your AR? You know, I don't think there really is one specific number where if you shoot one round under that, suddenly your AR is just completely fine and pristine, but if you shoot one round over that, then suddenly it's going to explode the next time you fire a round. That doesn't really exist, and that's not really a thing. So my approach is to just pick a number that you know you can remember, and that's going to help you maintain a regular maintenance schedule. For me, that number just happens to be 1,000. And why is that? Well, I order my ammo in quantities of 1,000, so it's just a convenient number to remember, honestly. That's really all the thought that goes into it. So every 1,000 rounds, once I need to order more ammo, I just remember to clean the gun too. I really don't think it needs to be any more complicated than that. At the same time, if someone were to tell me that 1,000 rounds is way too often, yeah, I would say that's a fair critique. But it works for me and my gun's great, so I have no complaints with it. But with some of these considerations out of the way, let's hop into the video itself on how I actually go about cleaning my AR. To clean your gun, you'll need some cleaning patches. You'll also need a brush. I recommend one that has some thicker bristles. Of course, we need some Q-tips as well, a dirty rag, your lubricant of choice. In this case, I just use CLP, but whatever works for you. A cleaning rod, the length of that depends on the barrel length of your rifle. And then you don't need this is not mandatory, but I have here an Otis bone tool. It helps remove carbon from the bolt carrier and the bolt body as well. Before we start cleaning, we need to make sure we're working with an unloaded weapon. So pull back the charging handle on your rifle and make sure that there's no ammunition in the chamber. Once you've done that, you can locate the two takedown pins on the left side of the rifle. Push them in until they don't go any further, and then you'll be able to remove the upper receiver from the lower receiver. Once you've done this, pull back on the charging handle on the upper receiver, and this is going to remove both the charging handle itself and the bolt carrier group, which are the two pieces you want to spend most of your time on before you move to the upper receiver itself. Now with the bolt carrier group and the charging handle out of the gun, we're going to focus on these two pieces, starting with the bolt carrier group, which will take most of your time, and then the charging handle at the end is not too difficult to do and tends to be a pretty quick cleaning. To properly clean the bolt carrier group, we first need to take it apart. So start by removing the firing pin retaining pin located on the left side of the carrier group, and then take that out with your finger. And after you've done that, you can remove the firing pin itself, which should just drop freely from the rest of the carrier. Afterwards, you can rotate the cam pin 90 degrees and pull it out, and then you can also take out the bolt body. Once you've done this, just give a wipe down of each of the different components, making sure to get rid of any gunk or any oil that's built up over time. Afterwards, we'll move on to the bolt body itself, particularly the face and the extractor. As you can see here, these pieces have some pretty high wear on the front where the finish is worn off. So let's start by removing the extractor by taking the firing pin retaining pin and pushing out the pin that holds the extractor in place. Once you've done this, the extractor will just pop right out, and it should be pretty easy to clean. Make sure to use a Q-tip and a brush to remove any gunk that's built up over time as you've been shooting your gun. After this, you can use your tool of choice to remove any carbon that's built up from the back of the bolt body. Once you finish with the bolt body, we'll then move on to the carrier group itself. As you can see here, there's a decent amount of wear. This is also a high friction part. And so we'll start just by wiping it down to remove any excess residue that's built up as you've been shooting. Q-tips are definitely your best friend here. They'll definitely help get into a lot of nooks and crannies. And you can also put some CLP on one and get the inside of the bulk carrier itself, which will be especially dirty. Once you've done this, you've cleaned your bulk carrier and you can set it aside. We'll also make sure to give a quick wipe down of the charging handle. This part doesn't take much time, but it's worth just cleaning it anyway. To reassemble the bulk carrier group, we'll first need to lubricate some of the moving pieces. I just put a drop of oil on the extractor pin here before I actually insert the extractor back into the bolt body. It's not totally necessary, but it is a moving piece that's critical to function, so I'll do it anyway. After this, the bolt body is ready to be put into the bulk carrier group. I would suggest putting a little bit of CLP on the bolt body itself just to make sure there's some lubrication, and then it can slot right into the bulk carrier itself. You'll need to make sure when you put the cam pin in here that the extractor in the bolt body is facing the 11 o'clock position, and then you rotate the cam pin 90 degrees. This will let the firing pin drop in freely, and then you can add the firing pin retaining pin back into the bulk carrier group itself, and then you've completely reassembled this piece. We'll then move on to the upper receiver itself, and you can just use a rag and again use Q-tips to clean any hard to reach areas. You'll want to pay special attention to the reach face in the chamber. As you can see here, it's going to be a pretty difficult to reach area just because of how it's machined, but just use Q-tips and a lot of patience, push through and you'll be able to get it done. Moving along to the barrel itself, we'll need to put a cleaning patch with some CLP onto our cleaning rod. And once we've done this, we can insert the rod through the rear of the upper receiver and then clean out the barrel. You may want to repeat this process a few times. The final component we need to clean is the lower receiver. This part doesn't get nearly as dirty as the upper, but it's still worth giving it a wipe down of the mag well or any other areas you see dirt have built up. We'll also want to clean the fire control group. To do this, you need to release the hammer slowly so it doesn't directly strike the body of the lower receiver and doesn't damage it. And at this point you can use Q-tips or get any hard to reach areas within the hammer or the disconnector is sear. At this point you've finished cleaning your gun, so we just need to reassemble it. Let's lubricate each of the moving pieces before we do. As you can see here, I'm lubricating the charging handle with just one drop of oil and spreading it on the body. As for the bulk carrier group, it gets a lot more friction, so I'm just putting drops of oil on these contact surfaces and using my finger to spread it around. Once we've done this, we can insert the charging handle first into the rear of the upper receiver, and then for the bulk carrier group, with the bolt fully extended, you can also slide it into the rear. Then we just need to mate the upper with the lower receiver, align the holes in the takedown pins, and you have finished reassembling your gun. So that'll do it for this one, guys. Thanks again for watching. To recap, clean your guns, don't neglect them, but also recognize that they were designed to be durable and to endure harsh conditions in the first place, and you don't need to get these so clean that you can eat dinner off them. That's weird and frankly just not even realistic anyway. And one final thing I'll throw in there is that even though I will field strip and clean my gun every 1,000 rounds like you saw, I will still after each range day put a couple drops of lubricant on each of the friction areas just to keep everything nice and tidy. So with that being said, appreciate you guys watching and I'll catch you in the next one.